Hey, this is Dead Gamer. This video is about the comparison between the current new ZONE MORTALIS Necromunda Dark Uprising terrain with the Sector Imperialis stuff. I believe this is what this is called. I just have this one piece here to show you, as well as the older Sector Imperialis stuff, which are the, if you're familiar with this, the predecessor to the Sector Imperialis terrain. You've got these older style. These were around for probably 10, 15 years. And then this just came up a few years ago with the new kill team. And I'm going to be doing a comparison just kind of on this little board to show you sort of the different things I found out about this. There is some compatibility with this older stuff. Not so much with the newer stuff in terms of compatibility. Well, they're both different, which is what I want to talk about. So I've got everything kind of laid out right here. How I've been doing these videos, I've been doing a bunch of Sector or ZONE MORTALIS stuff just because people are interested in hearing about it. And I've got the set, and I figure I'd just do some of this stuff so people can get more informed, because I personally think you should go out and get it. But I know it's $290 American. I don't know what it is in, Australian or Canadian or in pounds or in euros or any of that. But yes, it's pricey, but I have just had nothing but fun with this, and I am enjoying it. And I guess that's what it's really worth, right? What is $290 in terms of the unlimited amounts of joy that I'm currently getting from this? This is probably going to be the last video I do tonight. I've done a few this evening and getting tired. I want to do, I'd say the biggest winner out of all this is the Sector Mechanicus stuff, because that's definitely more of a Necromunda kind of thing, but I don't really want to talk about that because that's not what this video is about. So without further ado, I've got my laptop at an angle. Just got a little Ziploc bag box holding it up. So I'm going to take this and get it out of the way so I could drop this bad boy right down here. So yeah, I'm just going to talk about it, show you some stuff that I found out. So this is, if you're not familiar with this set, I've got another video where I go in detail about it. So please check that out if you're totally just in the dark about all this stuff. But if you know what's up and you're coming here just because you want to see the compatibility of these pieces, first I'll start off with the tile itself. This is me, and this is kind of what I do. I like to look on the internet to answer certain questions, and sometimes I can't find them. So I just like to put stuff down in comparison to things so people who are like me as well can kind of get an idea. So here's your let's do this right here. I'm gonna drop my finger here. So that's how wide that is in terms of a piece of terrain to these squares. So it's a little more than one. It's encroaching on two. It's actually encroaching on the teeth right here, which play a locking function for some of the ZONE MORTALIS terrain. So that's how wide that is. And in terms of height, let me get that flush, pick that up. It's going to be about, literally about 2.5 is what it's looking like. It's coming up to the middle tooth here. I'm calling these things teeth on the board. So it's about 2.5 in terms of height of the board. So that's, if you're that kind of person, if you're like me and you want to know, well, now you know. The older ZONE MORTALIS stuff, this was super cool. These are actually legitimately, no joke, one square. So if I line that up right there, it is one square. I guess it's a tad bit. If you count this line in the middle, and I'm trying to get it sort of splitting that line, I mean, it is just dead. Am I showing you? There you go. It's dead on. Like, it's crazy. So these are actually, the same width as one tile. In terms of the height, let's go back to one with the teeth. Let's do it about here. So it's a little more than 1.5 in terms of the teeth there, but I'll put it down on the bottom so you can see it. Move it over. So yeah, it's just a little bit over 1.5 tiles. This is the older. It was also Sector or Manufactorum or whatever. There was a bunch of different pieces, but if you guys have played Warhammer for a while, you'll know exactly what pieces these are. This is all the stuff that came out before this guy right here. So that's its comparison to the board. Now I want to do sort of stacking. I tried stacking. I could not get an even height. I stacked 5 of these tall, and 5 of these tall still don't complete a level. And what I mean by that is, like, if you take these pieces of terrain stack, and you just start going up, and you keep going up, and you keep going up. Now I'm off screen, but I started putting these next to it to see if there was a section where you could actually get to where it levels with one of these plateaus, and it doesn't. I mean, I've did 5 and it doesn't. So if you want to go higher, I don't think you're really going to go higher than that. 4 is pretty tall. 4, I think, is about a foot, maybe a little less. This board's a foot long, so let's see. Yeah, it's a little shy of a foot. It's probably about 10.5 inches. So, in that regard, these things are pretty much useless, but they do create, like, if you put that right there, hope you can see that. Let me knock some of this off and bring the board closer to you. But if you do want to do some kind of conversions or whatever, and you put this piece right in there, you'd be able to do some terrain, some work, because this actually, again, is the same width as these. It's literally the same exact width. Okay? So, pretty impressive. So this width here is that width there. So that being said, you do have opportunities to do conversions, and I also temporarily I put all these together. I'm probably not gonna be able to do it right now because they're kind of fiddly pieces. They want to fall over. But if you make a perfect square out of these, that perfect square fits in one of these squares right here. So if you have these pieces at home and you want to make sort of off height, because this Zone Mortalis stuff is very much symmetrical in terms of height, but if you want to make something that's off and a little taller or a little shorter, and you want to make these cubes, just make a 4, glue 4 of them together, put a roof on it, then you can make these standalone little cubes, which would be kind of interesting and fun. So they do have a purpose there. There's also these these are the old for that Sector Imperialis terrain. They did have these pieces, which were the floors, and these floors, they're not 100% compatible, but they do loosely fit inside of the slot. You can see that there's some room for play right there, right? You can probably see the gap. Let me make sure this is completely seated. There we go. So now it's completely seated. It does actually seat inside of there. So it goes in, but there is some play right there. It does want to wiggle. But if you're gluing it down, there's no reason why you couldn't glue these in if you have these. And these would actually make really good plank pieces, like for Necromunda, You could probably even do like multi-level, like if you want to go 1 here up to a 3, and you want to chop this up, you could probably do that. It's a little steep of an angle, but it's doable. So there is some convertibility here with these pieces, which is fun. Just lay it across as a platform. Obviously, it's going to, let's see, is this the same size too? So each one of these squares, that's the weird thing about this Zone Mortalis terrain, is that the standalone squares, these smooth squares, are the same size as this stuff, but these toothed ones and these 4 corners, they're a little wider because they have these like runners. So if you look at the board, and I talk about this multiple times, you've got a strip here, a strip here, a strip across, and a strip across. And that's where all your terrain can actually hook up to the board. Well, these pieces are wider than these 4 squares, these 2, and these 2, and these 2, and all these corners. So it kind of throws you off when you want to put this, like, say, going across from one side to the other. Right? It'll bridge this gap perfectly from here to here, but then this is off because it's not compensating for this additional weird line that begins here. So with some convertibility, yes, 2 of these would perfectly fit right across. So you do have those opportunities. You could probably cut this, if you have these pieces, cut it in half, use a 2-piece to bridge that gap, then use this 1.5 broken one as sort of like, oh, it got blown up, and this is kind of like the remaining piece of, and it would measure up. Like this going under here, it would all look legitimate. Like, that's pretty cool, right? I mean, obviously you'd cut this part off, but you could use this portion right there, and it lines perfectly up. So that's the first stage. That's the version 1 of the Sector Imperialis. Unfortunately, all this stuff's no longer available, but you can find it at like game store flea markets and on eBay and all that stuff. Second stuff is the current Sector Imperialis stuff, which is actually wider than everything. So it doesn't match any of these cubes. However, where you win with this is its height. So 1 level of this, or I should say 2 levels, when you stack 2 up and you have your landing, this piece literally fits flush underneath there. The top of this pillar is a little lower than this little runner right here. And if you have this terrain, you'll know that that runner is where you'd put the floor on. So this is literally designed the same height and the same width of these floor pieces. Should probably pull it out. Right here are designed on this guy. If you see what I'm talking about, if you don't have this terrain, see how there's a lip right here? Well, that little lip just holds that terrain in place, like so. So, so it'll sit right up in there perfectly and flush, and it does the exact same thing here. It sits perfectly in flush. Unfortunately, these squares are a lot bigger. I'll take this stuff off so you can see that as well. The squares on here are, that's it flush. So it's a little more than 2. by 1 1/2. And yeah, so I mean, the only benefit from this guy right here is that you have the stackability, the height of this terrain. As for like putting this stuff on top of here, it's nothing that really keeps it solid, and it's a little bigger than the other stuff in terms of squares and the Necromunda plank itself. See how it hangs off? So that's kind of a bummer. It's not 100% compatible in that regard. But, you know, anything can be converted, right? So you do have that option. Then I also have like just the regular ruins and stuff. So with this set, I mean, you can, the benefit is, I think these whole pieces are a bonus if you want to do some kind of crazy, you know, you want your platform to cruise across. I mean, you could probably even cross these up and do something like mix the sets up, do something like that. You know, if you, I mean, you're gonna have to plan all this out. Obviously, that looks like shit, but because it doesn't really make any sense. But this stuff here is the height of 2 of these. The old stuff here is the width of these standard squares, which is kind of cool. So there's definitely some playability with the old stuff. It doesn't become obsolete if you have it and you want to. I think making the boxes, like if you have a lot of these pieces, I think making cubes, like 2 tall cubes or even 1 tall cubes, would be pretty awesome. Because then you'd have just these weird obstructions that aren't normal, and it would sort of set the set off because everything again is so symmetrical. It's cool looking, but if you played old Necromunda, you'll know that there used to be planks at different angles. And I'm gonna move the laptop back, get my Ziploc bag box. Yeah, I mean, the old Necromunda, your platforms were, you'd be walking from one level to another. And I think that if you had some of this older stuff and you made some cubes, you'd be able to do that and make some pretty cool tiered systems and things like that. So I think that's it for the Sector Imperialis stuff and the old Manufactorum. I'm going to do a video on the new Sector Mechanicus terrain because that stuff is incredible with this new Necromunda set. But it's kind of got the whole Necromunda vibe anyway. So I think they probably base this off of that set. And there's more exciting things that happen with that. And then I'm also going to do the, like the armored containers. I'm going to do a video on that. This is probably the last one tonight. I'm getting kind of tired. Got to get up early. So, but I am totally jonesing on this set. This stuff is super fun. And putting it together and just kind of playing around with it, and its compatibility with old stuff it's pretty neat that there's still some relevance. I also have a video where I did the tiles from Underhive that came out a couple years ago, and the ZONE MORTALIS stuff doesn't quite fit it, but I sort of figured some stuff out, so that's pretty neat too. I'm just overall having a blast sort of going through this stuff. So hopefully my measurements and everything were what you were looking for. If you had questions about it or you wanted to know scales, things like that, you know, pause the video, just kind of go over it in more detail. I'm just kind of slapping this stuff on there so you can just see it in the wild, kind of, so to speak. So that being said, keep your eyes tuned for my Ryza terrain, the thermic plasma conduits, and the old Prometheum pipes. Got some of that stuff out. I've got this one next. Not going to do this tonight, but how this box interacts with stuff, because it does. Just some cool shit. So It's about all I got to say about that. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks.